Hello everyone, today we are going to explore how businesses manage production costs. Understanding costs is important for making decisions on pricing, production levels, and maximizing profits. So this chapter will guide you through economic costs, short-run production relationships, short-run production costs, long-run production costs, applications, and illustrations will be on a real-life case. So each section is important for building your understanding of business costs and how they influence the decision. Let's start with first the economic costs. Economic costs includes two types of costs. The first one is explicit costs. These are actual out-of-pocket payments, like you pay for your businesses, you pay to labor, wages, and you pay for utilities. The second one is the implicit cost, which is the opportunity cost of using your own resources. For example, if you own a building and use it for your business, the rent you could have earned by leasing it is an implicit cost. Let's do one example to understand how explicit and implicit costs differ. For example, let's say you are producing t-shirts and the explicit cost is $63,000. And this cost includes the cost of t-shirts, employee wages, and utilities. And let's say implicit cost is $33,000, which represents what you could have earned. Let's say you're an accountant, as an accountant. So you're given up this income and therefore you spend all your time for your business. Therefore, this $33,000 foregone wage is your implicit cost. So therefore, implicit costs are invisible, you might say, but there is an opportunity cost of using self-owned resources. And here I want to mention several types of implicit costs. Foregone wage that you could have earned if you don't have the business. If you own the building, the foregone rent. Why? Because you're using the space for your business and you're not paying rent, but you're actually giving up the foregone rent. And the last one is the return on your own money. So how could this be? For instance, you save $100,000 and you use this $100,000 for your business, but if you borrow this 100K, you should pay interest on it. And if you use your saving, you are giving up the interest earning, which you can earn, let's say 10% in the market rate. So you're giving up the 10% earning on 100K, which is $10,000. And instead of getting this $10,000 over the year, you are using this money in your business. Therefore, the foregone interest, not the itself, the money itself, foregone interest is an implicit cost. Because we have two types of costs, we have two types of profit. Accounting profit, this is the revenue minus explicit costs. For example, if a business earns 100K and then let's say the explicit costs are 60K, then the 40K is going to be the accounting profit. On the other hand, economic profit takes into account both explicit and implicit costs. So let's say implicit cost is $20,000, which is foregone wage. And in that case, the economic profit will be 100K minus 60K minus 20K, which is 20K. Economic profits are important because they give a clear picture of profitability because it includes the opportunity cost. So economic profit is usually used in decision making. When you calculate economic profit, you assume all other foregone opportunities as costs in profit calculation. Therefore, if you find economic profits greater than zero, that means by making that decision, you're doing better than for other alternatives you have. So here it says that 20K tells us that you could have earned 20K if you don't have the business, but because of having the business, you are earning 40K, which is 20K better than the foregone wage. So when we look at economic profit versus accounting profit, Accounting profit only counts the accounting costs, which are explicit costs only. Therefore, accounting profit in most cases are greater than economic profit. And economic profit, since it includes both accounting costs, which are explicit costs, and implicit costs, economic profit is usually lower than accounting profit. We have to define, when we talk about the cost and production, two terms. One is short run and the second one is long run. In the short run, some inputs like the size of a factory are fixed, but other inputs like labor can be adjusted. In the long run, all inputs are variable, meaning businesses can adjust the size of their factory, the number of workers, and enter or exit the market. Let's think about an example. Let's say you have a baking business, and as being a bakery, you can hire more staff in the short run. But expanding the kitchen, right, because kitchen is a fixed resource in the short run, would take more time, which is a long run decision because you might have a lease agreement on the kitchen, so you might wait for the lease to finish and so that you can expand. Therefore, the period of the lease agreement is short run for you. The reason is it's short run because now kitchen is a fixed resource, but you can be able to change the labor in the short run because it's a variable one. In the long run, as I said, all inputs are variable. If you think about, again, baking business, when the lease agreement for kitchen ends, you are in the long run because now you can rent another kitchen, you can get out from the business and so on. For that reason, long run, all inputs are variable because you can be able to change the size of the kitchen. And you can adjust any type of plant size, as well as you can make the decision to enter or exit to the industry. So we have a couple important definitions here we need to understand. The first one is the total product, which is the total output produced. Marginal product is a related concept and is important. It's the change in total output when you increase the labor by one more unit. That's the marginal product. Average product is total product divided by units of labor. For example, if a cafe hires one more barista, let's say the production increases from 20 to 30 coffees. So I want to know what is the marginal product of this barista. So I'm adding one more barista and I realize the coffee production increases from 20 to 30 coffees per hour. So it seems like this barista only adds 10 because it's the change in total product divided by change in labor, which is 10. That is the marginal product of this barista. And the average product depends on how many baristas there are in total. So if the total product is 30 and you have 2 baristas, then 15 coffees per barista is the average product. So we have an important concept here that we need to understand. Law of diminishing returns. This law states that as more units of a variable resource, like labor, are added to a fixed resource, like machinery, at some point the additional output will start decreasing. So I want you again think with an example to understand this term. Let's say you have a small kitchen with one oven. Hiring more cooks helps at first. You have the first cook, second cook, because they specialize, right? They specialize on doing what task each of them. Let's say this guy can cut the vegetables, this guy can prepare the dough, and so on. So we will see that the production is going to increase at first when you increase the cook. But unfortunately, after a while, too many cooks, if you start increasing the number of cooks because you see that production increases, you will realize that there is a diminishing returns for each cook. The reason is because that each of the cook will get in the way and therefore increase in production is going to slow down. The reason we have this because we have only one oven. Therefore, when you have fixed resources, increasing the variable resources will not going to help you to produce more because there's diminishing returns to marginal product. So each cook is going to produce less and less output because they are going to get in each other's way. Here we can see total, marginal, and average product. Let's see, here we have the labor and we have the total product. And when we want to calculate the marginal product, we want to know the change in total product when you add one more labor, which in this case it's 10. And as you see, it's increasing marginal returns here. Why? Because if I add the second labor, two of them together produces 25, but the second one individually adds 15 units. Why? Because total product increases from 10 to 25. So the marginal product of second worker is higher than the marginal product of the first worker. Therefore, we have increasing marginal returns. If we add one more labor, and let's see, 3 of them together produces, total output is 45. And because of having the third labor, the additional output we produce is 20. How do we find 45 minus 25? 20. So still, marginal returns are increasing because the third labor's marginal product is higher than second and the first. And 4 labors together produces 60. And if we want to calculate the additional unit produced by the fourth labor, it seems like it's decreasing. Because from 45 to 60, it's 15. Therefore, from after third labor or third worker, we see diminishing marginal returns because fourth worker has 15. And if you continue to calculate the additional unit produced by each worker that is hired, you will realize that you could have negative marginal returns. Why we have negative marginal returns? Because it's now the production place is too crowded. Since everyone is getting in each other's way, we realize that the total output, instead of increasing, decreases. So if we want to see the figure how total product looks like, as you see, total product is increasing first at an increasing rate here first and at a decreasing rate. It reaches an optimal level, and after some time, which the number of labor increases, it starts to decrease. And let's look at the marginal product curve. Marginal product curve has 3 stages. First, increasing marginal returns, when we see the specialization and increase in output and increase in marginal product of labor. Diminishing marginal returns, we see still we are adding to the total output because each labor we add produces positive amount of output, but at a decreasing rate. They are adding less and less product when you increase the quantity of labor. And the third stage is negative returns. When we have negative returns, it means that the total product is decreasing and additional labor is actually decreasing the number of products produced in total. That's why it's called negative marginal returns. So in the short run, we have 3 types of costs. The first one is the fixed costs. Fixed costs do not change with output, such as rent. You pay rent no matter how many units of product you produce. Variable costs, these are the costs increase as more is produced, like raw materials. And total cost is the sum of fixed and the variable costs. For example, a factory has to pay rent even if it's not producing anything, which is a fixed cost. But the cost of materials will rise as more goods are produced, which is a variable cost. Here you can see short-run cost schedules, and total cost is given here, which is total cost is total fixed cost plus total variable cost. And as you realize, total fixed cost is not changing. Whether you produce 1 unit or 10 units, it's 100. But variable cost increases, and it's 0 when you don't produce anything, because it's the cost when you start production. Total variable costs are the costs that you need to produce the product, and the total cost is the sum of these fixed costs plus variable costs. And let's look at the average fixed cost. Average fixed cost is fixed cost divided by quantity. So if you produce only 1 unit, it's 100 divided by 1, which is 100. If you produce 2 units, it's 100 divided by 2, 50. And as you realize, average fixed cost decreases as more units are produced because you're spreading the fixed cost over more units. And for average variable costs, the same idea. You take the variable cost, divide by the quantity produced. 90 divided by 1 is equal to 90. And here you are dividing the total variable cost by 2. Therefore, it's 170 divided by 2, it's 85. And marginal cost is the change in total costs because you're increasing the production by one more unit. So here, as you realize, from 0 to 1, total cost increases by $90. So therefore, an increase in total cost because of producing an additional unit is 90, marginal cost is 90. So if you check the marginal cost of producing second unit, you will realize that it's the increase in total cost from 190 to 270, which is $80. Therefore, marginal cost is $80. And let's look at short-run cost curves. So here you will realize that total cost curve, it's increasing and it starts with 100 because of the fixed cost. Variable cost curve is parallel to total cost curve and it's increasing as well, but total fixed cost curve is fixed. As you realize, it does not change with the level of output. So let's define first the per unit or average cost. Average fixed cost is total fixed cost divided by quantity. Average variable cost, total variable cost divided by quantity. Average total cost divided by quantity. And marginal cost, as you realize here, is the change, delta sign means change in total cost divided by change in quantity produced. Now on the screen, you see per unit or average cost. And when you look at average fixed cost curve, it decreases as production increases. Why? Because the cost is spread over the units as you produce more units. You start with one unit and $100. Average fixed cost is 100 divided by 1, it's 100. But if you produce 2 units, now you're spreading this $100 over 2 units. 100 divided by 2, 50, and that's why it's decreasing. Average variable cost first decreases as production becomes more efficient. You remember, average variable cost depends on labor, and labor is more productive at the initial stages because of specialization. Remember that their marginal product is first increasing. That means each additional labor produces more. Therefore, average variable cost decreases first, but eventually increases due to diminishing returns. And ATC is the sum of these two curves. Therefore, it's decreasing because both average fixed cost and average variable costs are decreasing. Therefore, ATC is decreasing. But at some point, it starts increasing because increasing average variable cost dominates in calculating average total cost curve. And finally, marginal cost curve reflects the cost of producing one more unit. And it is very similar to average variable cost. It's first decreasing. Why? Because if you remember, because of specialization, labor is more productive at the initial stages, but then diminishing returns kicks in and marginal cost increases. That means producing additional unit becomes more expensive due to diminishing returns. And now let's compare marginal cost and marginal product. When marginal product is increasing due to specialization, we realize that both marginal cost and average variable cost is decreasing. And then when marginal cost starts decreasing, we will realize that marginal cost and average cost curve are increasing. So let's talk about now long run production. In the long run, all inputs are variable and businesses can adjust everything, including the size of their operations. This allows them to achieve lower average cost by choosing the best plant size for production. Here you can see the firm size and costs, the long run average total cost curve, and 5 possible plant sizes in the short run. Let's say if the output is 20, short run average total cost curve looks like this. If the output is 30 and you have another short run average total cost curve, and depending on the output size, you have different short run average total cost curves. And here the long run average total cost curve is passing through the minimum points of all these short run average total cost curves. Here you can see that the long run average total cost curve, unlimited number of plant sizes, and it passes through the minimum points of these average total cost curves in the short run. The idea is very simple. In the short run, you choose the lowest possible cost you want to pay per unit. And when you look at the long run projection of what you have done over the years, depending on different output sizes, you find out your long run average total cost curve is actually tangent to the lowest point of short run average total cost curve with different output size. And now another important concept in the long run is economies of scale. As businesses grow, they can achieve economies of scale where producing more leads to lower cost per unit. This happens due to the factors like labor specialization and better use of machinery. For example, if we think about the baking business, a larger bakery can afford better equipment and it will allow to produce bread more cheaply than a smaller bakery. So the reasons of economies of scale is due to labor specialization, managerial specialization, efficient capital, and could be other factors. This economies of scales is the opposite of economies of scales. When businesses become too large, they may face diseconomies of scales, where managing a large workforce and complex operations leads to inefficiencies and higher costs. The efficient scale is the smallest level of production at which a firm can minimize its average cost. Industries like electricity or water supply may be natural monopolies where one large firm is more efficient than smaller ones because they are minimizing their long-run costs by producing mass. And here you can see this is the long-run average total cost curve. We have the economies of scale and the average total cost curve is decreasing as you produce more output. We have constant returns to scale. You can increase output from Q1 to Q2, but cost remains the same. And after Q2, we see diseconomies of scale. So what are the real-world applications? Raising gasoline prices affecting delivery companies like FedEx. This is an example of how costs are affecting the decision making. Startup companies like Google and Starbucks achieving economies of scale by spreading costs like research and advertising over large production volumes. And large manufacturing machines like Weber Metals stamping machine, which requires high production levels to justify the investment. And finally, we can talk about a case example on your textbook. Cloud computing allows businesses to rent computing power instead of buying expensive servers. This reduces the risk of overinvestment and allows firms to scale their operations more easily. So this is chapter costs and production. I hope this helps you to understand, read the chapter. Thank you for watching this video.